To learn more about earning college credits with study hall courses, go to gostudyhall.com or click the link in the description. Let's say you want to learn how to juggle. Maybe you saw a video of someone juggling and thought it seemed fun. Or maybe your crush only dates people who are jugglers. This seems like a weirdly specific type, but you'll do anything for love. Fortunately, your grandpa is supportive, and he offers to pay for camp and help you practice your new skills. Unfortunately, your friends have decided that juggling is definitely not cool. Plus, now your crush only dates tightrope walkers. Pretty soon, your juggling balls are gathering dust in your closet. In this super hypothetical situation that I've definitely never experienced, you didn't really make all of the decisions about your juggling career on your own. And with a few changes to your situation, like if your grandpa, your friends, or your crush had felt differently, you might have made very different decisions. The point is, in every part of our lives, we have a lot of influences. We're influenced by our culture, our environment, the people who raise us, and the people we choose to spend time with. Not to mention all those people on social media. And the same is true of human development. There are plenty of biological processes and innate personality traits, but there's also a lot that comes from other people and the world around us, and that can be a lot to juggle. Sorry, I had to. Hi, I'm Deja Fitzgerald, and this is Study Hall, Intro to Psychology. As we've talked about in our episode on physical and cognitive development, psychologists study people over time to find patterns in how they develop throughout their lifespan. From infancy to elderhood, people are always changing physically, mentally, and socially. And these changes happen for a variety of reasons, including our genetics, biology, environment, culture, and the people around us. Some psychologists have focused their studies on individual development and things that seem to happen regardless of our surroundings, like the physical effects of aging. But others think that development has an awful lot to do with social influences. For example, the Soviet psychologist Lev Vygotsky, who lived from 1896 to 1934, developed a theory of childhood development that emphasized the socio-cultural approach. He thought it was important to examine how the society a child is part of influences when and how they achieve certain goals and milestones. For instance, a child's culture values certain ways of describing the world and begins giving them tools for fitting in with this culture early on. Like if you grow up in a family that's part of a circus troupe, you'll probably learn the words for different types of trapezes pretty quickly. Vygotsky also believed that we gain skills and progress through the milestones or stages in our lives within the zone of proximal development. That's his term for the gap between the skills we already have and the skills that are learnable with help. And to move from one skill to the next, we need more knowledgeable others, or other people in our lives, like parents or caregivers or teachers, coaches, mentors, family friends, and circus performers. So a 5-year-old child may not be able to walk a tightrope successfully on the first try, but with the help of a teacher, they'll be able to learn this skill. Vygotsky's ideas became influential to our understanding of education and psychology, and other psychologists have also studied influences on development. These influences begin even before birth. Perinatal psychology is the study of the developing brain and body during pregnancy, birth, and early infancy. Perinatal can refer to both the period before birth, which is also known as prenatal, and the time immediately after birth, sometimes called postnatal. Psychologists in this field look at the patterns and connections between experiences during pregnancy and long-term developmental outcomes to understand how early development impacts a person throughout their life. For instance, many people make changes during pregnancy to promote healthy fetal development, but not everyone has access to excellent prenatal health care or the infrastructure to follow best practices during a pregnancy. And some substances and environmental factors like nicotine, alcohol, drugs, bad air quality, polluted water, and certain chemicals in foods and medicines can impact the development of a fetus during pregnancy. These influences are known as teratogenic influences, or substances that interfere with typical fetal development. In the period immediately after birth, researchers have begun to see just how helpful and positive skin-to-skin contact between an infant and their caregiver is for development. It has physical benefits like regulating body temperature and stabilizing breathing, but it can also help the infant bond with their parent or caregiver. And relationships with parents and caregivers are some of the biggest influences on a child's early development. In the 1960s, the developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth created a theory about how babies respond when they're separated from their primary caregivers. according to this theory, the kind of bond or attachment style a child has with their caregiver determines how the baby handles separation. In her experiment, Ainsworth placed mothers and babies in an unfamiliar room and observed their interactions through a series of stages. In some stages, a stranger would be in the room with the mother and baby. Sometimes the mother would leave the room and the baby would be alone with the stranger, and sometimes the baby would just be alone. Ainsworth observed how the baby interacted with the stranger and how the baby reacted when their mother left and then re-entered the room. Based on her observations, Ainsworth theorized that there are three kinds of attachment. Some babies in the experiment experienced distress when their caregiver left, but the distress didn't last long, and the child became excited when the caregiver returned. This was labeled a secure attachment style. The caregiver was a secure base who helped the child explore their environment. But when children didn't form a secure attachment with a parental figure, two kinds of insecure attachment could occur instead. Some children didn't respond when their caregiver left, and they didn't necessarily want to be close after the separation either. This became known as avoidant attachment. And some children showed a lot of distress and anger during separations and couldn't be comforted when the caregiver returned either. This is called resistant attachment. Later, research also recognized a fourth kind of attachment, called disorganized attachment, where the child's response is inconsistent, including signs of both avoidant and resistant behaviors. Attachment is formed early in life, largely based on the way caregivers respond to a child's needs, but it can change over time. It can also have long-lasting impacts. A child who forms secure attachments is likely to become more confident and independent, and a child who doesn't have secure attachments may have a hard time forming close relationships later on. But don't worry, despite what you saw on TikTok, your relationship probably isn't doomed just because of your attachment style. And that's just one way our parents and caregivers can have a big influence on how we develop and who we become. They also got the entire rest of our childhoods to leave their mark. In psychology, parenting refers to everything primary caregivers do while raising their children, and parenting can be done by anyone who is raising a child. So we can think of the character Matilda as an example. She has biological parents in Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, but she also is parented by other figures like the librarian, Mrs. Phelps, and her teacher, Miss Honey. And then parenting styles is the term for the way a parent or caregiver approaches parenting, like how Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood completely ignore Matilda, but Miss Honey recognizes and supports her intelligence. In the 1960s, developmental psychologist Deanna Baumrind identified three common parenting styles. First, there's authoritarian parenting. These parents are very strict and see themselves as the rule makers and sole decision makers of the family. Think Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. Parents with this style aren't to be questioned by children, and breaking a rule can be met with a harsh punishment. Then, on the other side, you've got permissive parenting. These are the no rules or low rules households where parents are generally engaged and supportive, but may have difficulty creating boundaries and consistently enforcing rules. These parents may be more hands-off when it comes to things like bedtime or completing homework or eating birthday cake for dinner. In the middle of these two approaches is authoritative parenting. In authoritative households, parents create boundaries, rules, and plans, but children are allowed to ask questions about the structures in their family. Like, why do I have to go to school every day? Can I stay out until midnight? Why can't I have the rest of my birthday cake for dinner? Questions are seen as natural and a form of learning about what's okay and what's not okay, as well as testing boundaries that parents set. The type of parenting style you experience doesn't dictate exactly how your life will go, but there are trends and patterns in how these styles tend to impact children. In Baumrind's original study, authoritarian parenting was correlated with withdrawn children. Kids with permissive parents showed low self-control, and those with authoritative parents seemed to be well-adjusted and independent. But of course, there are exceptions. In some families, kids with authoritarian parents are independent, and studies in Spain and Latin America show that kids raised by permissive parents have equal or better self-esteem and social outcomes than those raised by authoritative parents. And that shows that while parents and caregivers are important, they're definitely not the only influence on our development. At a certain point, kids start to be influenced less by their parents and more by the entire rest of the world. As children transition into adolescence, they may begin to spend more time with friends or begin dating. And the culture and society we grow up within also affects behavior and development. There's often a point when children or teens are expected to grow up and act more mature and independent. But psychological maturity, like so many cultural concepts, is a vague term. and this season varies across different countries, religious groups, and communities. Like in Jewish culture, there are important coming-of-age ceremonies called bat mitzvahs or bar mitzvahs that happen when someone turns 12 or 13. And in the United States, legal adulthood is 18 years old. But many people don't feel like adults at age 13, or even age 18. So clearly there's not just one age when we stop being kids. And there's not an age when we stop being influenced. As we move into adulthood, we may feel certain pressures or expectations around whether to attend college and what kind of college to attend. There may be differing societal norms about things like when and whether to move out of our parents' home, what kind of career to pursue, relationships and marriage, and having children. We also make choices in our careers, relationships, and how we raise children that are in some part driven by what we witness in our own childhoods. And society and culture influence us even into elderhood. In some collectivist cultures, where the group is valued over the individual, elders may be given a higher level of respect. They can be seen as sources of key wisdom and memories for the group. But Western cultures sometimes focus on the burden of aging instead, and can view elders as unproductive or not useful. These attitudes can dramatically shape how elders spend their time and feel about their lives. Understanding the various influences on development throughout our lives can help us understand the culture and society we grew up in, the people we grew up with, and some of the reasons for why we are the way we are. It can help us to appreciate our strengths and differences and work together with others to reach a common goal. It can also help us to see the places where we might like to make changes in our lives to better align with certain values or avoid repeating certain patterns. Like maybe you want to live in a place where everyone is expected to learn to juggle at an early age and all the kids go to juggling camp. Or maybe you really don't. If you're enjoying Study Hall, Intro to Psychology, and are interested in taking an online course and earning college credit, visit gostudyhall.com or click on this button to learn more. Thanks for watching. See you next time.